Hi, I'm Lisa and I set up LISAS CIC back during COVID in 2020. I was doing home care at the time and I realised there was a big need, a gap in the market for social activities for people of a certain age. I noticed people were really isolated. Obviously COVID was a tough time for everyone, but it made us realise that there's a need for something within the community because a lot of people were just isolated in the home. So there was a lot of mental health problems and things, and doing the home care was very time limited, and I'm quite passionate just about spending that social time with people. They wanted to chat, they wanted you to have a cuppa. So I thought, right, I want to provide something that's a little bit different from your normal kind of group. So I thought, what can I do? So my background is originally I worked with children and then teenagers and children in care. And I've always been quite creative and like providing activities. So I thought, right, I'll work on my strengths. That's what I've got. So what could we do? So I thought, right, I want to offer a variety of different groups. So I did ask people what they'd be interested in and what they'd like. A restriction kind of was transport, so I thought, right, I do need to look at that. So it just started as an idea, and it was like, can I do this? I thought, it's not can I will do this, it's needed. So I left the home care and started off with just one group. I advertised it, so we're about the marketing it and getting it out there to people, but then what I did realise is the social media marketing side of it, yes, we were hitting families as target audience, we wasn't reaching his target audience because it was like a lot of family members or friends of older people that were then passing on the information. So we did leaflet dropping, and I thought, no, I need to be showing my face and going around the community. So spent a long time just leaflet dropping, chatting to people, asking what they'd want, what would be needed. Also, very passionate about being inclusive. So both my children, I'm a mum to two boys, both my boys have additional needs. One's autistic and one has ADHD, as well as some other learning disabilities. So I know I struggle for stuff for them. So in the community, for a lot of people who had additional needs, they needed support to attend a lot of groups. They were anxious, they weren't seeing people during the week. They needed the confidence building, they needed support to be able to attend the groups. So I thought, right, I need to look at that. So the bigger picture was I really wanted it to be inclusive. I wanted it to be different from anything else. So I started off on my own, running one group. So it was a private business to start with, and it was never about money, it was about providing a service that we need in the community. So for over 2 years I kind of did that volunteering to start it up. I didn't get paid, I put quite a bit of my own money in it. And I didn't know where to kind of go or where to start to get the support I needed. So I had an idea, but an idea is an idea, but then where do I go? Who do I speak to? Yusuf from Community Plus came along to one of my groups. I'd never heard of Community Plus, and he was kind of like, you know, you're going to grow, this is going to get big, you can't do this on your own, so why don't you change to a CIC? I'm like, what's that? And then I'm like, oh, that's a lot of paperwork, a lot of admin, which I've never run a business, that's not my background. I'm dyslexic myself. I'm on the ADHD pathway plan, so I am active, I am busy, I can talk, but the academic side of it were like, oh, can I do this? Can I do it? And I was like, no, I can, I will do it. So Yusuf were a great support network, and I was like, right, let's go for it. And then obviously signposted to other people who came along and helped. Kirklees Business Hub, I had a mentor, Tracy, who worked with me, absolutely brilliant, put a business plan together, and really had a good talk to me to make me understand what would be involved. Yeah, this is great, you want to run these groups, but actually you're going to be running a business, you've got to think of this. And I'm like, oh, yeah, okay. But if I can get the funding, and I was naive, I didn't know that had all worked, the funding and things. I was like, yeah, oh great, this is brilliant, let's get the CIC. So we did, and that went through. 2022 changed to a CIC, and then we started another group. So originally the first group started off me, and we had 3 people attend the very first group. Lockdown then took place. There was a lot stacking against us when we first kind of started, but it made me more determined. People wanted to be coming back to the group, so we did the lateral flow test so people could come back, and we followed obviously all the guidelines. And then it kind of grew because the positive from COVID was people wanted to be getting out and meeting new people. It gave them that thirst for kind of life and, you know, meeting people. So we did that. So yes, so then I was like, actually, we need another group in a different area because obviously there's other areas struggling. So then we started another one in Kirklees, and the idea was I wanted it to be different. So during COVID, there were a lot of restrictions, so we couldn't necessarily do the activities I wanted to do. So we had social distancing, they had to have the individual equipment. So we did do a quiz, but then we started off with games. So it wasn't as like, you weren't having to share the equipment, they had their own games, and I led the games. And that wasn't the idea in the beginning, but the members liked that, and that carried on as a games group. So I always started with a quiz, then games, and then finished with bingo. So that worked well for that group, like brilliant. But actually, let's do something different when we start another group. In Birkinshaw, we did baking, and every week it was something different. Baking, chair dancing or exercises, and then we did crafts, and then we had a lady who came in singing along to the piano and things. So we were reaching different target audiences, which everyone came to whatever was suited to them and what they wanted. And that really, really picked up, and that grew in numbers. And we were having people attending who had additional needs. We had a lady who was hard of hearing, a lady partially sighted, a lady registered blind, and we was able to then offer one-to-one support, which was needed and was important for people to be able to access a lot of groups. So when a lot of the research I found, people didn't have the confidence to be able to attend groups. We found as soon as they got through the door, they was fine, but that initial getting through the door was hard. So like, right, we actually need to offer one-to-one volunteers. Eventually, once we'd got the volunteers, we grew from one volunteer to, at the end, we had 19 volunteers. 3 of them became directors. Three of them became group leaders, 2 of them became directors. So, you know, regarding the volunteers, it gave them the set of purpose as well. For some of them, we had volunteers who come from a variety of different backgrounds and had a number of different health issues or things themselves. So they enjoyed being able to help, and they found it rewarding, you know, and they formed friendships as well. Some of them were lonely, you know, and they formed friendships, and that was really, really nice and needed. So we were like a little close family, and their skills, they worked on their skills. They brought a lot of different skill sets, which really, really helped. You know, one lady, finance, she worked in finance, great, that wasn't my thing, didn't like it. So she was able to help with all that, and that was brilliant. So it was utilising people's skill sets. And maybe I could have worked on that a bit more, but I didn't want to put pressure on people, because I thought, they're volunteering their time, how kind, you know, to do this. So I would just keep building up my workload, and it wasn't good. It wasn't, you know, it wasn't good, it wasn't helping. I wasn't delegating, not very good at delegating. A bit of a control freak and a perfectionist, and want everything done my way. But that was a learning skill for me, and in the end, I did it. I was able to let go of my baby and let somebody else help, because it was that trust. So I learned new skills of letting go of that and actually work with people's strengths that can help build that bigger team, you know. And it were great, you know, the courses. So there were a lot of courses that were offered as well, safeguarding, boundaries. So a lot of volunteers enjoyed it and learned new, especially where like the dementia group as well, because people were interested in working it but didn't have any experience. I was like, you don't need any experience, but they've left with the right skill set. And the key, we've even had a volunteer who went on to do her own online course in dementia, and things like that. So that was amazing. You know, what better way of them being in the community as well and helping people with dementia and China. And that's what worked. A lot of the volunteers was within the initial area of where the group was. So they wanted somewhere, they didn't want to travel to volunteer, which fair enough, you know. They was looking for something within their community as well, but couldn't find anything. We actually ended up with a lady all the way from Wakefield who couldn't find anything she was interested in volunteering wise within her council. And I thought, that's crazy, she was going to come all the way over here. But how lovely, and she did. So her mum had dementia, and then she's actually, now we've closed and we've finished, she's actually at another dementia group because of the skills she's learned and the interest in it, which is absolutely fantastic, and she's enjoying it. I started working with more organisations, so obviously I was already working with Community Plus. They were the first organisation that I ever started working with, and they really, really helped. And then I was able to obviously say to people, have you heard of Community Plus? But, you know, if you want to try something else, they'll be able to help you. So it was nice, a lot of networking, and then obviously the TSL, and, you know, really grateful for all that support. And it wasn't what you know, it's who you know, and it was building them relationships with people and getting that support massively helped. But I didn't realise how much kind of was involved, and I had my own struggles being dyslexic and the ADHD. I was like, I can't do this. So they didn't just help the members, a lot of the organisations helped me realise and believe in myself, I suppose, as well. Like, you know, you can do this, you will do this, and there's this funding. And it was amazing that helped, just being forwarded the funding to know what was what. The local MP were signposting people to us. We had social prescribers, we had dementia nurses. So then obviously we also set up 2 dementia groups. I was very passionate about dementia. It runs within my family as well, and there was a lot during the home care that had dementia, even more so isolated. Some locked in their houses as well, you know, you'd have the key safe for their own safety and things, but it was like, oh, this is so sad, you know. And sometimes you'd see people wandering about, and like, there needs to be something for people to get up, something to get up for and something to look forward to. And people did really look forward to it and enjoyed it. So the dementia group, yes, I was like, right, this definitely is needed massively, and especially this side of Kirklees again. But that took a very long time to get up and running off the ground, because I didn't know what I needed in place. I just knew I wanted to have a group, a dementia group, that would support carers as well. It wasn't just about the members, you know, these carers, it's 24/7. It was a lot on their mental as well as the physical health, you know, nobody about looking after them as well, and them having other carers to talk, just kind of a support group for them as well. So I was like, right, what do we want this group to be about? Because it will have to be different to the other groups, obviously, to cater for the needs and things. So I knew I wanted the carers to have a bit of respite, but I knew I wanted the members to be active, because with dementia it's important to keep the brain active. It is for anybody, but especially for dementia. So I'd never done anything like that. I'd worked with people with dementia in the home care, but I'd never done any activities. So that kind of set me on fire, and I'm like, oh yeah, I want to do this. What can we do? So I spoke to people, I spoke to the carers. So that group started differently, and then I heard about Magic, and that were through Community, like Community Plus as well, signposting us to everybody active. And then they become involved, and I thought, yes, because that's fun, it's games, it's keeping the brain active physically as well, and it's including everybody. You can include the carers. So that worked really well. And we did focused activities where if we could, it'd be one-to-one, which a lot of people with dementia needed. It were one-to-one activities where they had that time with you, and they were building that confidence up. But you wouldn't be with the same member, you would work with all the different ones. We built relationships with everyone and the carers. The carers would sit on another table, would have a coffee and a chat, and they had their support. They looked forward to seeing each other. a lot become friends. They would message each other outside of the groups, just sort of like support of you being through this, what can I do for this? But then I also realised they didn't know what was available in the community, other resources, like Carers Count and things like that. So we got in touch with Carers Count, and then we ended up with Elderly Lady from there, Helen, attending monthly and supporting our carers, not just supporting with finances, filling forms out, seeing what they was entitled to, but also other groups that were able to support them, and respite, which was a massive thing for a lot of carers, not getting the respite. And then we had the access, I got in touch with the access bus and said, look, this is what I'm doing, but I really need transport. Is it something you can offer? So I only originally knew about the access bus because of the home care. I had a lady who used to get on the access bus, and I was intrigued. I'm like, well, this is amazing. What do they do? And they're like, oh, take us shopping and it's great. We can do this, we can do that. I thought, I wonder if I can tap into that. So I did a bit of begging and pleading. I was like, look, I'm looking at setting this group up, but I really need transport. People are limited because transport was a massive issue. Financially as well, people were struggling. So I had to look at the cost of the groups. There was a lot to weigh up. And we secured the access bus. It worked. You know, people were also then going out on a ride. Having a bit of a bus ride was also enjoyable to a lot of people. That really enjoyed it. They'd have a natter on the bus. We built a relationship with the bus drivers. You know, they'd have a bit of a laugh and a joke with them, and it was nice. There was more social interaction with people in the wider community as well. Going back to the funding side of it, everybody was struggling. I'm no different to anybody else. I appreciate that, but I had no knowledge of applying for funding, so that was a massive barrier again. I'm not good at writing things down, filling forms in. So I got support and help with that, but in the end I had to end up paying for somebody to do the bid writing because of my struggle. So again, that was an extra finance cost. But we secured some National Lottery funding, but we needed big funding, large scale funding, not just pots of £1,000 here and there. So it started off really hard to get the funding. I was applying myself, and then obviously I employed someone, and then it got better and it picked up, and then people was saying there's this funding, there's this available. The local MP were giving me links to funding, and you might be able to apply for this Community Plus. Appreciate everything, so I did, and we did really well. It was amazing. All this funding was coming through. I was like, oh yes, this is great, but not for a lot of the core costs and not for me for salary. So I did eventually, after the 2.5 years, I did start getting a salary, but it was only like 10 hours from National Lottery and then little bits from other snippets of funding which did run out. It were only for 6 months, some of that, or for a year. There were no sustainability financially for me and my family. And it was like, I put thousands of pounds of my own money into setting this up. And it was like, I can't keep putting in my own money sometimes as well. So yeah, that was a massive barrier. And we just eventually, it got to the point where even though we were paying for the bid writer, we were getting knocked back for big pots of funding. And this lady doing the bid writing, fantastic, did bid writings for really big organisation. She was good at what she did, and she was even struggling, and I was like, what am I going to do? And I ignored it for a bit and carried on going, it'll be all right, it'll be fine. Bills were coming through, your national insurance, because obviously I was getting a little bit of a wage, there was that to kind of pay, and I was like, in realisation, Lisa, you need to employ people for this, for Lisa to carry on to take on them, some of the workload off me, but actually you can't afford to pay yourself, so how are you even going to do, how are you going to do this, what are you going to do? And it were admitting defeat, but kind of like, it can't carry on. How long can you keep going when the pot's getting empty? And our big funders was the National Lottery, and that was due to run out. And the panic was in. because that actually did support some of our core costs, it waffle core costs. So yeah, there's a need for core cost funding out there massively. But I feel we were in some ways saving, like say the NHS money and things, by helping people with the mental health. You know, we're providing a service. Yes, we did charge, we had to charge members. We started off, it did start off as £5 during COVID because we were limited to how many we could have because of their social distancing and regulations. But then it did drop down to £4.50, but then we've had to put it up. And I didn't want it to be about money, and I didn't want to charge, because how can you say to somebody, well, you can't come because how can you limit somebody being able to come because they financially can't afford to? That's wrong. That's wrong in my eyes. They need and deserve that service as much as anyone else. Some of these people, they've worked all their life. They've put into society. They've made a difference. It's time we give back to them. So I didn't want it to be limited. But luckily, you know, people was able to pay it. But the rise of cost of living, the coffees, the tea, everything was just going up. I was just hitting a brick wall, and it was so hard. You know, the members obviously didn't want it to close down. They was willing to pay more money, bless them, but it was like, it's still not going to cover costs, and that was heartbreaking. So the barrier was that. I had to face facts. It was becoming far too much. Funding, massive barrier, especially for core costs. Because ideally, a lot of the stress would have been taken off if room hire could have been covered. And I had to face the reality of, I need a salary. I can't keep working for nothing. Yes, the groups, it was 12 hours in total a week, but I was working a good 80 hours with paperwork, admin. I was the bookkeeper, the financer, the planner, the organiser, the shopper. There was a lot of variety of roles that I didn't realise would take, obviously, its toll on the end, but it was a service needed, but I needed that support as well. And I wasn't able, ideally I needed to employ people, because you can't put a lot of pressure on volunteers. It wasn't fair, I didn't want to lose them. But out of the 19, I bet 10 of them did extra responsibility. So even with their support, it was still hard. Because academically I had my own struggles. So I ended up applying for access to work, which I wouldn't, again, have even known that I was entitled to be able to apply for that. And that was through working with organisations and learning things. Again, I only just got a phone call from them last week. They told me it'd be 18 weeks on the waiting list, and this was well over. It was going on nearly 2 years. That's ridiculous. Like, you know, people have got the right, who have got a disability, to still run their own business or to have their dreams and follow them through, but they need that support. And I've always been, I don't. It took a lot to say, actually, I do, if I can get that help and somebody can help me keep LISAS going, offer that extra support. I was doing admin or things like that, great, but it came too late. So that case is now being closed. And that's sad, that's really sad, because that could have made a difference if it had come a little bit earlier. It wasn't that LISAS didn't work, it was a service that did work, because we was different to a lot of groups in the community, a lot, and you know, people enjoyed it. We offered a loan service of books and jigsaws, you know, for them that aren't able to get out and about and go to the library, or who don't have the money to afford jigsaws, but it's keeping them occupied, it's keeping them busy, you know, so that service, that helped. We offered puzzle sheets on the tables each week that people would take away and do at home. It'd keep the brain active at home. A lot of our quizzes as well, a lot of the members would do that with family members over the phone after they'd done the quiz. It would build relationships with their family members as well, giving them something to talk about, a communication starter. And we always took pictures and videos of the groups. We like to showcase what we were doing, because personally as well, I like photographs and the photos. What better way than just talking to somebody than actually video evidencing and photos of what you're doing. So that worked really well, our social media side of it, because family members could see what people had been up to, what they'd achieved. It was a conversation starter. Oh, I've seen you did this today at group. Oh yeah, we did. How did you know that? You know, it was lovely. So that was nice. We were achieving a lot more than just the groups, working with the other organisations. Plus we also went on outings. So I didn't want it just to be groups as well. I wanted people to be getting out and about in the community. You know, we went to the seaside every year. Once a year we would go to the coast. Somebody had said they hadn't been for 30 years to the coast. And I'm like, oh, how can nobody not see the sea or the beach, you know? And the joy and things they got out of it. And the lady who hadn't been to the coast for 30 years, you know, she said, I hadn't even dipped my toe in the sea. I'd love to. I'm like, right, we will do it. We will achieve it. And we did it, you know, and the joy that brought and then memories that it built for people. And we offered again that one-to-one. They were like, well, I can't come because I can't walk that far. And, you know, I need to have a wheelchair. That's fine. The volunteer will push you. Fine, we'll do that. So we always adapted things. You know, without them, the LISAS was all about the members and what they wanted, you know. And the outings, we did Temping Bowling, Crown Green Bowling. We worked with the Crown Green Bowling group in Birkenshaw as well, so we built community ties and networks. Every year we'd go there. They put that on free of charge. You know, their volunteers who run the group, they would be showing our members. You know, we had the local police come along and do talks. We had a lot of guest speakers. It was nice. It was, you know, local councillors coming in. It was somewhere, a hub. People could come and chat and know what was going on in the community, and just build networks. You know, it was nice. It was needed. Unfortunately, moving forward and in the future, it's learning from this. So, you know, my advice to people is, yeah, you do want to set up a CIC, you can do it, of course you can do it, anyone can do anything, they put their mind to, but you have to be realistic, you have to realise you can't do it on your own, you're going to need that help and support. So I kind of felt a bit like deflated, like, oh my gosh, I failed, but actually I haven't, I didn't. A lot of organisations who are running groups are big charities, big organisations. They've got employees, I haven't, and one person who was storing all the equipment at home, working from home. You know, it consumed my life. LISAS was my life, and you know, you've got to have that happy work-life balance, and there certainly wasn't. I prioritised work even over my own health, my kids, you know, so there needs to be a big team of employed people. My volunteers, forever grateful. LISAS wouldn't have been what it was without each and every one of them. They all brought their own skills. The directors, I'm not saying they took on a lot of work themselves, but they're volunteers. You can't start affecting their lives. Some of them were still working and things, you know, they had their own busy life and kids and things. So yeah, it's needed, the finance side, sustainability. You know, people have ideas but don't want to go in it because they don't want it to have to stop. And I've noticed a lot of groups have had to close, and that's really heartbreaking because the service is needed. We'd built up we ended with 49 members, 18 carers, 19 volunteers, going from me on my own, that's where it built, to working with one organisation, to working with countless organisations. For me to then learn that knowledge to signpost people, it benefited everybody, other organisations as well. Like, they had somewhere they could come and showcase what they did, because people don't always know what's on offer, especially a lot of the elderly in the community. Some of them don't even watch TV, they start listening to the radio, they don't see anybody, you know, so they might see carers. How nice to be able to just provide something that brings joy, and it definitely did. Not just to them, to me, and to the volunteers, you know, it brought a lot of joy to people. So it's needed, and people were very upset, cross, angry that it were finishing. and that was tough. But they didn't see the bigger picture of what's needed, and to them it were a case of, well, I can't get some more money. Why at the council's put? Why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? But nobody's got any money. So again, it does come down to money. Really, the bigger picture and what's needed within your community. This is needed, especially the dementia support services, massively needed. So we need to do something. There needs to be a team of people who are going to figure this out and offer something. I don't know, I've not got the answers. I just know there's people who are passionate about making a difference out there, but for them to be able to deliver that service, that's needed, they need support.